Check. Okay, batch monitor, please confirm. Is it all good? Audio, video? Fine. Good morning, everyone. I hope all of you are doing fine. We're meeting after some time. So in the last class, we discussed a few of the disasters. So we are talking about the last part of disaster management unit, about the different disasters. Excuse me. Excuse me, sorry. Yeah. So in the last class, we were discussing about the different disasters in India. the important disasters, the areas, starting from what do you mean by that particular disaster, उसका मतलब क्या है, then the important regions where we have that kind of that particular disasters. We can say the important regions affected by that disaster, then the causes of disasters, and most importantly the management or the mitigation measures required to deal with that particular disaster. तो यहाँ पर आपको you have to read specifically our NDMA guidelines as given by, as prescribed by NDMA. I have already told you that these guidelines go for like pages together, so it's better not to go into detail about that. You just have to remember a few of the important measures, the headings याद रख लिया तो आपको अपने आप लिख सकते हैं, है ना. बट द थिंग इज लाइक यू शुड राइट दोज मेजर्स सजेस्टेड बाय एनडीएमए, है ना. लोग अपने आप खुद का मेजर्स लिख देते देन फिर डाल देते हैं एनडीएमए का गाइडलाइंस एज सच. प्लीज डोंट डू दैट मिस्टेक्स, है ना. वो पता चल जाता है बिकॉज देयर आर स्पेसिफिक गाइडलाइंस एंड जो एनडीएमए के गाइडलाइंस है यूजुअली दे अपीयर इन अ पैटर्न, लाइक यूजुअली लाइक यू कैन क्लियरली मेक इट डिफरेंस, है ना. दे डिस्कस इन डिफरेंट हेडिंग्स, वो होना चाहिए आपके पास. सो व्हाट आर द डिजास्टर्स वी डिस्कस इन द लास्ट क्लास, स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम द earthquakes, how exactly earthquakes are caused, the regions affected by earthquakes, the natural causes, anthropogenic causes, and then the important measures as suggested by NDMA, then the challenges in earthquake management. So then we came to the floods, the causes of floods, both natural as well as anthropogenic, then the flood prone regions in India, then flood management guidelines as per NDMA, which includes the flood plain zoning, the important one. इसके ऊपर क्वेश्चन आ सकता है, so just be thorough with this part. Okay, floodplain zoning, this is a very important aspect. With picture, try to practice. Then we came to the concept of urban flooding, the reasons behind urban flooding. So did we discuss about the management guidelines? That means how to handle the urban floodings. ये सारा डिस्कस हुआ था. So today's class will be discussing about the rest of the disasters, and this would be the last class. Okay. Yes, I think we stopped at the causes only. So I told you I'll discuss the measurement management guidelines to deal with urban floods. Okay, so what are the disasters we are going to cover today? Because there are many disasters, and if you see many of these disaster and उनका जो management mitigation measures है, they are almost similar. Okay, so after some time you will feel repetitive, थोड़ा सा repetitive हो जाता है. So let's not spend too much of time in those repetitive measures. So जहाँ पर मुझे repetition लगेगा, I'll tell you to go through the material. If I hope all of you have got this updated material on disaster management, है ना, from Vision IAS, उसमें तो detail ही दिया है. So let's see. I want to cover this flooding के बाद में cloudburst. Recently there have been cloudburst incidents in few of the places. Cloudburst cover करना है. So then drought के बारे में questions आए हैं, तो let's cover drought. And landslides भी हुआ है in the recent times. So landslides are also important. And I'll briefly cover the cyclone, क्योंकि cyclone के ऊपर अभी तक क्वेश्चन आया नहीं है, बट आ सकता है. ओके, आ सकता है, because cyclone is something which happens every year, तो कभी भी पूछ सकते हैं. So I'll briefly cover that, because cyclone तो geography में cover किया होगा. So I'll cover the mitigation measures alone. So then few of the important करंट रिलेटेड, जैसे बायोलॉजिकल डिजास्टर्स हो गया इन द कंटेक्स्ट ऑफ पैंडेमिक, कोविड पैंडेमिक, उसके कंटेक्स्ट में कैसे मिटिगेशन मेजर्स है. एंड फॉरेस्ट फायर इज वन another current event along with heat waves. Okay, so we have the very recent examples of heat waves, particularly from Canada, North American regions. So इसके ऊपर भी थोड़ा सा बात करेंगे. So let's try to wrap it up today. So most probably full class रहेगा. ठीक है. अगर आप लोग जल्दी कर सकते हैं तो जल्दी भी हो जाएगा. सो इट्स ऑल्सो डिपेंड्स ऑन यू, राइट. चलो लेट्स स्टार्ट विद द अर्बन फ्लडिंग. सो एनी डाउट्स? एनी डाउट्स एंड क्वेरीज? Anything from the previous topics? चलो आगे बढ़ते हैं. ठीक है. So all of us know what exactly is urban flooding. Basically flooding in the urban region, and we know that they are caused mainly by the anthropogenic factors only. है ना, ऐसा कुछ नेचुरल फैक्टर्स नहीं है कि अर्बन जगह में ज़्यादा बारिश हो जाए and causing flooding over there. So various factors like the disruption of the entire drainage system, removal of the forest, removal of the trees, and increase in the concrete surface. ये बहुत सारा हमने डिस्कस कर लिया, including the urban heat island effect. And now let's talk about the mitigation measures. We discussed what are urban floods and causes of urban floods. Now, the management of urban floods as per NDMA guidelines. Management of urban floods as per NDMA guidelines. See, urban region में पहली बात, क्यों flooding होता है? Because of a large surface area under concrete, है ना? The concrete surface do not absorb the water very easily, so it will let the water flow. It will let the water flow. So when the water flows to a large extent, we should also provide for the channels for it to flow and get drained into some rivers or streams or lake or anywhere जहां से बाहर आ सकते हैं, सिटी से बाहर आ सकता है ना, or if it can be stored. So that is what we call it as the drainage management. It is very important that we have an efficient urban drainage management. Urban drainage management. So which includes various aspects, है ना, इसके अंदर बहुत सारा aspects है. So first thing we call it as the storm water drainage system. What do you mean by storm water drainage system? So whenever there is storm, whenever there is a heavy rainfall, है ना, it should accommodate the water which pours down in the urban regions should be let out, should be passed out very easily. ठीक है. See, there is no handout as such मेरे तरफ से नहीं है. I was talking about the vision material, the printed material which I have which should have been given to all of you, है ना. ये जो printed material होता है ना disaster management का printed material मतलब अभी तो online material हुआ होगा, PDF मिला होगा आपको. The value addition material of disaster management, I was talking about that. From my end I will give you the PPT. Other than that I am giving you notes. जो brief points है वो तो लिख ही रहा हूँ. So I would prefer to give that along with PPT. ठीक है. So urban drainage management में the first important point, any city should have an efficient storm water drainage system. So usually a city, urban area would have a plan for this, but the thing is they are not maintained properly. They are not maintained properly. So particularly due to pollution, most of these drainage systems, the stormwater drainage system, they are all blocked. So you might have seen whenever there is a rainfall, the corporation people, they will come out and they will try to remove all the blockages. वो तो पहले करके रखना चाहिए था ना. So that is what that should be ready. So that will reduce the chances of flooding, right? And it also includes designing the entire system, the flow system with control. Okay, design flow with control, designing of flow with control. Matlab usually in some of the regions the water accumulates, low lying areas the water accumulates. Okay, that one we can divert to some of the regions jahan par there are wastelands or the lakes or wetlands jahan par pani ja sakta hai. Okay, that is how we can design the flow of water in the urban regions with control mechanism. That is what we call it as a design of flow with mechanism. And most importantly, removal of solid waste material at regular intervals. Okay, because this is solid waste material, particularly our plastic, the most important cause of blockages in the entire stormwater drainage system, and then even the normal flow may be jo blockage hota hai, that is mainly because of the plastics. So this has to be maintained and removed at regular intervals. Okay, so that we have an efficient urban drainage management. The entire water which falls in the urban regions can be washed away very easily. In addition to that, NDA may also suggest for creation of rain gardens. Okay, please keep writing this. ये जो measures मैं लिख रहा हूँ ना, उसको लिखते रहो. ऐसे separate dictation देना तो it's I feel it's a waste of time, because you can just note it down, brief important points. जहाँ पर definition है I'll dictate that. So NDA may suggest for something innovative mechanism called rain garden. So what exactly is this rain garden? See, rain gardens are certain patches within the urban regions जहाँ पर there are more trees and more soil. Okay, where the water can percolate. Okay, NDMA says that every urban region should have here and there some rain gardens where rain water can percolate into it. Okay, of course it should have certain green patch so that it will help in the percolation of this rainwater. That is what we call it as the rain garden. Yes, this is all urban floods. Urban floods के अंदर mitigation measures as suggested by NDMA. Then rainwater harvesting system. Rainwater harvesting system, most important and most easy method of controlling floods as well as drought. दोनों के लिए लिख सकते हो आप rainwater harvesting. क्योंकि what exactly is rainwater harvesting? To collect the rainwater, to store it, or to feed the underground. Okay, you can store the rainwater and feed the underground. There are many ways to channel the rainwater into underground. Groundwater उसके वजह से ज्यादा हो सकता है. You can recharge the groundwater. है ना, that is one method. Second method is you can directly collect it and reuse it. There are again various methods. It's not as easy क्योंकि rain water is usually mixed with carbon dioxide and also some of the pollutants. Okay, even the dust particles, everything will get mixed when it is falling. So it has to be stored and then reused. So there is a separate method for storing. Okay, not like you will store in some containers and all. Okay, you have to build certain tanks. Okay, जो dark tanks होते हैं where the light is not penetrating and totally airtight. So in those kind of tanks, if you can channelize this rainwater, तो it is very easy to collect in urban regions particularly. क्योंकि most of the roofs are concrete है ना. You just have to channelize through some of the pipes connect करके channelize करना है. So every building, if they can construct an underground pit, they can store it. Or if they want to just recharge, you know, particularly if there is a bore well, usually in the urban regions there would be bore well, ना जो well होता है, underground well. We can also recharge that bore well using the rainwater harvesting. You just have to construct a pit around that bore well and fill it with certain filtering minerals like sand हो गया, gravels हो गया, charcoal हो गया. Okay, there are certain filtering minerals through which you can let the rainwater pass through and percolate along the sides of the bore wells. Okay, it can definitely increase the water level in those bore wells. So that is one thing. And second thing जो मैंने बता रहा था, so we can collect the rainwater. There are certain mechanism where we can collect the rainwater and store it. And if you store it for a longer period of time, all the impurities, everything will settle down, and whatever is the left water, it is very pure, and we can even use it for drinking purpose. है ना, ड्रिंकिंग पर्पस के लिए भी यूज कर सकते हैं. उसका मतलब है यू कैन यूज इट फॉर एनी अदर पर्पस ऑल्सो. ठीक है. सो रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग सिस्टम, इट हैज अ ट्विन ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ ग्राउंड वाटर रिचार्ज एज वेल एज टू प्रिवेंट द सरफेस रन ऑफ. सो ग्राउंड वाटर रिचार्ज से क्या होगा, इवन द ड्रॉट वुड बी प्रिवेंटेड, द वाटर क्राइसिस इन द अर्बन रीजन वुड ऑल्सो बी प्रिवेंटेड. एट द सेम टाइम, by preventing the surface runoff, it will also prevent the flooding. ठीक है, रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग. देन NDMA also suggests creating an urban flooding cell. Urban flooding cell under the Ministry of Urban Development. Okay, urban flooding cell under the Ministry of Urban Development to coordinate the urban flooding disaster management activities. To coordinate urban flooding disaster management activities at the national level. Okay, basically to provide for a separate mechanism within the Urban Development Ministry so that we can take targeted efforts. You know, that is what is urban flooding cell. It also talks about response. What do you mean by response? Response is the activities involved during the disaster. You know, that is what is response, right? So NDMA talks about certain response measures like creating and operating the flood shelters, emergency logistics, and most importantly sanitation management. You know, because wherever there are flooding region, you know, the water will not go away very easily. It will take few days for the water to recede. So by then many of the epidemics would have spread. So it is very, very important that we manage the flooding regions, the sanitation of flooding regions. The management of sanitation is very, very important. Okay, response, you can write urban flooding cell under the Ministry of Urban Development. Creation of urban flooding cell under the Ministry of Urban Development as a separate cell. है ना, अर्बन डेवलपमेंट तो इट इंक्लूड्स वेरियस अदर एस्पेक्ट्स, उसके अंदर एक सेपरेट सेल क्रिएट कर दो सो दैट वी कैन टारगेट इट. है ना, दैट इज व्हाट इज द सजेशन. देन रेस्पॉन्स में इमरजेंसी ऑपरेशन सेंटर्स, फ्लड शेल्टर्स, emergency logistics, and sanitation management. Then vulnerability and risk assessment. Vulnerability and risk assessment. So basically this step includes to identify those areas which are more prone to the flooding in case of urban floods. है ना, because usually every city would have certain regions which are low lying, जहाँ पर ज़्यादा development नहीं हुआ है, या जहाँ पर lake encroach हो गया, where there are natural channels. We have to identify them and we have to take extra precaution. Okay, so we can sensitize the people and we can train them in case of flooding क्या करना है, कैसे escape करना है, and also we can try to divert the waters. ये सारा measure ले सकता है if we can identify the vulnerable regions and do the risk assessment over there. And NDA may also suggest for the establishment of an early warning system. Early warning system. Early warning system. So that the regions can be, whatever the regions which are more prone, they can be intimated beforehand. If we can predict certain higher rainfall जब होने वाला है, so excess बारिश होने वाला है, we can alert some of the regions at least using this early warning system. ठीक है, so these are the important measures specifically for urban flooding. Remember, specifically for urban flooding. So urban flooding के ऊपर question आ गया, what are the management measures? So please remember at least 4-5 इसमें याद रखो and write about them. ठीक है, even I accept that it is difficult to remember all of it. सारा याद रखना मुश्किल है, but at least 4-5 याद रख के थोड़ा सा लिखो. So rather than writing a very general suggestions as per the flood management, कोई भी flood management, उसके बदले try to write these specific urban flooding का जो measures है. Is that clear? Any doubts on urban flooding? Second objective of water harvesting system, to prevent the surface runoff also. Okay, it has the twin objective of groundwater recharge as well as the prevention of surface runoff. Prevention of surface runoff. That is the second objective. Let's talk about the next one. Cloud burst. So cloud burst. So recently we had cloud burst in Dharamshala. Okay, and also just one day before we had cloud burst in Kashmir. Kishtwar में हुआ था. So the number of cloud bursts have been increasing in the recent times. So first let's understand the meaning of cloud burst. है ना, जियोग्राफी में मैं तो कवर कर दिया है. I hope it's covered in other batches also. So what do you mean by cloud burst? Is it all covered? What is the idea of cloud burst? Is it covered? क्यों होता है? What are the conditions? यस, RB5 में तो कवर हुआ है, आप लोग तो मना नहीं कर सकते, मैं ही कवर किया हूं. बाकी लोग बताइए. नॉट कवर्ड इन RB6. ओके, चलो ठीक है. लेट मी टेल यू ब्रीफली व्हाट इज क्लाउड बर्स्ट. ठीक है, चलो कवर करते हैं. So what do you mean by cloud burst? Cloud burst is literally a cloud is bursting out to release the entire water, to drop the entire water suddenly. Okay, whenever cloud burst happens, the entire water of the cloud drops suddenly. क्यों ऐसे हो सकता है? Why is it an event? Such an event would happen. ओके अगर ऐसे हो सकता है तो ये तो कभी कहीं पे भी हो सकता है. इफ ए क्लाउड कैन बर्स्ट एंड ड्रॉप्स ऑल द वाटर, सो कहीं पे भी हो सकता है. वेयर एवर देयर आर क्लाउड्स, ओनली वाई ओनली इन फ्यू लोकेशंस इट विल हैपन. ओके, लेट मी शो यू ए सिंपल वीडियो हाउ एग्जैक्टली क्लाउड बर्स्ट हैपन्स. Okay, observe this. ये तो बारिश हो रहा है, right? This is how the precipitation is happening from a cloud. ठीक है, this is normal. Okay, बहुत लोगों को ये भी बहुत ज़्यादा लग सकता है, but ठीक है, this is normal. You will actually feel when the cloud burst starts. So this is cloud burst. Can you see? When suddenly the entire water drops, that sudden downpour, that is what we call it as the cloud burst. It drops so much of water. Okay, it drops so much of water, it causes flash flood. Okay, flash flood is something, a sudden flood. Suddenly इतना ज़्यादा पानी आ जाता है, it will flood the entire area. That is what we call it as the flash flood. So recently one such cloud burst happened in Dharamshala, McLeodganj. Okay. So we have that witnessed in Telangana also. Fine. So but when do we say a normal precipitation, heavy precipitation and cloud burst? तीनों में कब difference रहेगा? That difference is identified by IMD, Indian Meteorological Department, which has defined cloud burst as more than 10 centimeters of rainfall per 1 hour. If the rainfall exceeds 10 centimeter per 1 hour, in 1 hour 10 centimeters, can you imagine that rainfall? you cannot imagine. Okay, unless you are in a very heavy rainfall precipitation, western side of the western Ghats में हो सकता है, वहां पर भी इतना ज्यादा नहीं होगा. Okay, or in northeast Meghalaya, even in Chirapunji, Mawsynram, it goes for a longer period of time, but it will never happen that 10 centimeter per hour of rainfall. It is no way possible. It is very very heavy rainfall. Okay, जब बहुत सही वाला बारिश आएगा, maximum it will be 1 centimeter or 2 centimeters. Okay, sometimes the entire night it would be 1 centimeter or 2 centimeter. You can imagine 10 centimeter per hour. It is a very very heavy rainfall. If that rainfall happens in a very small region, okay, बहुत छोटा सा जगह में हो गया, suddenly it is dropping out, like in that video I showed you, है ना? That is what we call it as the cloud burst. Okay, cloud burst. It's a disaster. It causes huge loss through flooding. Flooding की वजह से हो सकता है, और क्या भी हो सकता है. Okay, cloud burst will drop the water, right? There are 3 stages in the formation of a cloud burst. How exactly cloud burst would happen? See, the first stage is very heavy or very high rapid convection. What is convection? The upward movement of wind, the rising of wind, air, because of a very high temperature. When the high temperature heats the land, the wind rises, and that rising wind cools down, causes the formation of clouds. We know that. Wherever there is a very high and rapid convection is happening, why would there be a high and rapid convection? Because of very high temperature. जहां पर temperature बहुत ज्यादा हो जाता है, excuse me, okay, जहां पर बहुत ज्यादा टेम्परेचर हो जाता है, it causes a very high temperature and high rapid convection, and that results in the formation of huge cumulonimbus clouds. Okay, cumulonimbus clouds पता है? Huge clouds with anvil top like this. Okay, they are formed by the rapid convection. जब normal cumulonimbus clouds ही हो जाते हैं, there would be a very heavy precipitation. But when this kind of cumulonimbus clouds are continuously building up, they are continuously building up without precipitation. मतलब the clouds are continuously building up, precipitation is not happening. Okay, usually क्या होता है normal condition में, whenever the cloud forms, immediately it cools down and causes the precipitation, because the air temperature is normal. Even though the temperature of the surface is higher, air temperature, upper air temperature becomes normal. But during the cloud burst, even the air temperature is also high. Okay, air temperature भी ज्यादा रहता है. So whenever the air temperature is high, the dew point is also higher. Okay, dew point भी बहुत ज्यादा हो जाता है. It will not let the rain to happen immediately. It will just building up the cloud. It is just building up the cloud continuously. And such kind of conditions exist whenever there is a high temperature along the mountains. Along the mountains. Mountains में क्या होता है? Usually there are 2 hills, 2 mountain sides. In between there is a valley, and along these valley the wind rises very easily. Okay, there is a continuous rising mechanism. The winds can rise very easily along the slopes of the mountains. These rising winds results in the formation of huge cumulonimbus clouds. But high temperature do not let the precipitation to happen. Okay, clouds are just building up continuously. It is just building up continuously. Huge clouds will be formed. But it is not like continuously unlimited amount के लिए cloud build up होगा. There is always a limit, right? So whenever the limit is reached, whenever the limit of the entire cloud is reached, it suddenly drops, where it cannot hold the water anymore. The entire cloud bursts and drops the water. अभी तक जितना भी पूरा कन्वेक्शन होके जमा हुआ था, ओके, पूरा एक ही बार सारा गिर जाएगा, resulting in flash floods. So that is what we call it as the cloud burst. So usually they are more common. Okay, third stage क्या है? The burst. When the limit is reached. Okay, when the limit is reached, it causes the bursting of the entire cloud. So usually कहां पर ज्यादा होता है? Mountain region, because there is a easy lifting mechanism. The winds can easily lift it upwards. है ना, along the slopes of the mountains. The clouds can easily build up over there. But such kind of cloud bursts can also happen in desert regions. क्योंकि there is already high temperature. कभी थोड़ा सा moisture मिल गया, there is a strong convection causing huge buildup of the clouds. There also it can cause the cloud burst. And the third region in India, monsoon coast. What are monsoon coast? The western coast, the western side of the Western Ghats, है ना, the entire monsoon coast, and also in some of the regions, West Bengal, Odisha में थोड़ा सा chances है, where there is a chance of high building up of clouds. Okay, particularly along the western side of the Western Ghats, where the clouds rises vertically. Sometimes the clouds entirely builds up and suddenly drops the water. There is also chance over there. Best example हमारा मुंबई ले लो. मुंबई में हुआ था 2005 में. Okay, 2005 cloud burst. हर साल flooding होता है, वो अलग बात है. But cloud burst happened in Mumbai. Can you imagine the amount of rainfall it happened over there? It was 14 centimeter per hour. For the entire night, for 8 to 10 hours, it dropped huge amount of water in the entire city of Mumbai. पूरा flood हो गया था. Okay, nearly that much of water, nearly 140 centimeters of water in one night. बहुत जगह में पूरा साल तक नहीं गिरता है इतना पानी. ठीक है, I'll give you the notes, don't worry in this part, dictation दे दूंगा. And also in Leh, 2010 Leh, it happened, the cloud burst, which dropped nearly 25 centimeters of rainfall in 1 hour. Just 1 hour में 25 centimeters. And you can imagine Leh is totally dry area, जहां पर बारिश ही नहीं होता है. Okay, it's called as cold desert, right? लद्दाख. तो वहां पर सडनली हो गया था. Now recently जो धर्मशाला में हुआ था, let me just show you the topography of धर्मशाला. क्यों वहां पर हुआ ऐसे? So this is all plain. Can you see this is all plain, totally plain है. And Dharamshala is located at the just यहाँ पर, where the Himalayas are suddenly rising. Of course there are certain Shivaliks यहाँ पर है, but they are not very tall. Okay, so after that you can clearly see, so this area is Dharamshala and इसके ऊपर है McLeodganj. Okay, this is McLeodganj. And जहाँ पर जो heavy rainfall हुआ था ना, this valley. Okay, that region is called as Baksunag. So if any of you have been to Dharamshala, you would know it's a very famous tourist destination. At the same time, it is also very famous trekking place is also there in McLeodganj. Okay, Triund trekking, you might have heard. So this is Dharamshala and this is McLeodganj. And can you see this entire valley? See, it is very easy for the wind to rise along these valleys like this. बहुत easily rise हो जाता है. And it forms the huge clouds, cumulonimbus clouds. And when that is accompanied by a high temperature, जब high temperature ज़्यादा हो जाता है, there is a more capacity of the winds to carry more stronger convection. Stronger convection होगा, ज़्यादा cloud build up होगा. It just keeps on building up. Once it crosses the limit, suddenly it drops. That is what it happened. Okay, this entire valley was totally flooded. Pura flood होके, it caused huge damage in that entire region. Okay, can you see this entirely? मतलब suddenly, like it appears as if you are coming from the plain region, and suddenly you are entering. So these kind of regions provides the most suitable condition for the formation of cloud bursts. The same thing happened in Kedarnath also. Okay, the same thing happened in Kedarnath also. 2013 में जो flood आया था, the initiating factors over there was cloud burst. Okay, cloud burst resulted in a heavy rainfall which caused the lake outburst also. है ना, वहां पर lake outburst हो गया था. कौन सा lake है? चोराबारी लेक. चोराबारी लेक is just above the केदारनाथ. केदारनाथ के जस्ट ऊपर है. बिकॉज ऑफ द क्लाउड बर्स्ट इन दैट एंटायर रीजन, वहां पर लेक आउटबर्स्ट होकर पूरा फ्लड हो गया. एंटायर केदारनाथ वैली वॉज फ्लडेड. ठीक है. सो दैट इज ऑल क्लाउड बर्स्ट. So you might ask why there are increased number of cloud bursts in the recent times. Because of the temperature variations. And if you remember, this time it was one of the hottest June month. Okay, the hottest June month. In fact, even up to July तक बारिश नहीं आया था. The monsoon rainfall did not reach these places even in July also. Okay, July end में आया था. By the time the entire temperature, entire region's temperature was very high. There was a very strong convection possibility condition. जो भी था, it was possible. Now suddenly कहीं पे moisture content मिल गया, convection होने लगा. So that causes the cloud burst. Right? It's because of high temperature as well as we can attribute to delayed monsoon. ठीक है. So please write the definition of cloud burst. What is cloud burst? A very high precipitation of more than 10 centimeter per hour, of more than 10 centimeter per hour, in a small region, within a short duration of time. Okay, next, stages in the formation of cloudburst. Stages in the formation of cloudburst. First stage, a very strong convection. And the formation of cumulonimbus clouds. So which is possible in a when the temperatures are very high, right? Second one, the continuous building up of clouds, without precipitation. Remember, precipitation बीच में नहीं होना चाहिए. अगर बीच में थोड़ा सा भी precipitation हो गया तो उसका जो water content है कम होते जाएगा. Okay, gradually it keeps on reducing, right? So that will not lead to cloud burst. Continuous building up of clouds without precipitation, particularly in hilly regions. Due to funneling effect. What is funneling effect? That forcing of wind along the two mountain valleys. Okay, it is funneled, na? That is what is funneling effect. due to funneling effect. Third stage, soon the clouds stop moving upwards and suddenly drops all the waters causing cloud burst. Prevailing La Nina condition, no. La Nina condition usually causes more rainfall. Okay, La Nina is basically favorable for rainfall in India. But the thing is, there are other factors like negative IOD, negative Indian Ocean Dipole, or the descending cell of Madden-Julian oscillation. ये सारा चीजें matter करता है. So maybe that was one of the reason why it was delayed. Okay, we are yet to understand it completely. Fine. Why there was a total delay this time? The next subheading, regions in India, ये भी लिख दो. The regions in India which are prone to cloud burst. Entire Himalayas and northeast. Entire Himalayas and northeast except Assam. Except Assam. Why except Assam? Assam में क्यों नहीं हो सकता है cloud burst? बताइए. यस, क्योंकि उनके पास बहुत सारा फ्लड्स है, फ्लड से काम चला लेते हैं, वही काफी है डिजास्टर उनके लिए, है ना. दैट्स बिकॉज दे आर टोटली प्लेन रीजन. ओके, ऑफ कोर्स प्लेन रीजन्स में भी हो सकता है, बट इट हैज टू बी वेरी डेजर्ट रीजन, वहां पर हो सकता है, नॉट इन एनी काइंड ऑफ नॉर्मल प्लेन रीजन्स. Okay, wherever there is a very high dry condition जहां पर ज्यादा चांसेस हो सकता है, which can support a strong convection, तभी होगा. So that's why असम में बहुत कम चांसेस है. Okay, there is not much of mountainous region. Okay, second reason, deserts of Rajasthan and Gujarat. Deserts of Rajasthan and Gujarat. Third, the monsoon coast. Monsoon coast. Example, western coast, western side of Western Ghats. ठीक है. Then for management of cloud burst. So the thing about cloud burst is that it is very very difficult to predict. Predict कर ही नहीं सकता है. Okay, it is very very difficult to predict. So that's why it can happen anywhere. क्योंकि clouds तो normally रहेगा. Okay, cloud build-up तो it can usually happen anywhere in India during the monsoon season. Right? So it is very difficult to predict. हाँ यही cloud से cloud burst होगा या ना होगा, बहुत मुश्किल वाला काम है. So it is very, very difficult to predict. Even to exactly check the clouds and measure the capacity, measure the intention, we need a very fine network of radars. A very fine network of radars which can predict the cloud burst. But we have a very vast area in the entire Himalayan region, northeast region, there is a huge area. So it becomes very, very expensive to install such kind of network of radars to predict the cloud burst. बिल्कुल पॉसिबल नहीं है. Okay, it is highly impossible. So it is very, very difficult to predict. Predict तो कर ही नहीं सकता है. Because the current mechanism to predict that, we need a very fine network of radars which is too expensive to set up anywhere. So just we have to be prepared. Whatever the regions where the cloud burst is possible, तुषार इज आस्किंग मॉइस्चर कैसे आ जाता है डेजर्ट में, है ना. सो बेसिकली डेजर्ट में आई एग्री मॉइस्चर इज लेसर, बट कभी कभी इधर उधर से थोड़ा बहुत मॉइस्चर कलेक्ट हो जाता है. ऐसा भी नहीं है कि डेजर्ट में बारिश ही नहीं होगा, कभी कभी तो होता है ना. सो इट इज रीजन विथ लेस देन 25 सेंटीमीटर्स पर ईयर. थोड़ा सा तो बारिश रहेगा. समटाइम्स मे बी ड्यूरिंग द मानसून और प्री मानसून और पोस्ट मानसून कभी कभी मॉइस्चर अक्यूमुलेट हो जाता है, एंड दैट अक्यूमुलेटेड मॉइस्चर will start to rise, resulting in the formation of huge cumulonimbus clouds. It is possible. Measurement of rainfall के लिए we have many methods. Okay, rain gauge बोलते हैं. We have many practical methods also. Anyone can measure actually how much of rainfall is happening if you have enough open space. You just need some good container and way from which you can measure the water level. Okay, they actually measure how much of water it is falling. Okay, based on that, how much of water it is accumulating. So there are certain measures, practical measures here. Now, so I was telling about the management of cloud burst. Predict करना तो बहुत मुश्किल है. We just have to alert those regions जहां पर ज्यादा से ज्यादा chances है, those regions where there are higher chances of cloud burst, and we have to train them, we have to make them ready. We have to make them ready for what? For flooding. So that's why the management measures for cloud burst is same as the management measures of flooding. So जो भी वहां पर हमने डिस्कस किया है, you can write all of this here also. Okay, because cloud burst से मैक्सिमम क्या ही होगा, फ्लडिंग होगा. ऑफ कोर्स फ्लडिंग से लैंडस्लाइड भी होता है. आई एग्री, वन ऑफ यू सजेस्टेड दैट आल्सो. ठीक है, लैंडस्लाइड्स भी होता है. सो बट लैंडस्लाइड इज अगेन कॉज्ड बाय फ्लडिंग, राइट. द वाटर पर्कोलेशन उसकी वजह से होता है. सो मेजरली द एफर्ट्स टू mitigate the impact of cloud bursts is same as the efforts to mitigate the impact of flooding, so which you can repeat from the previous discussion. Okay, just write briefly about the management. There are no satisfactory tools for anticipating the occurrence of cloud burst. For anticipating the occurrence of cloud burst due to its small scale, full stop, it requires It requires a very fine network of radars. It requires a very fine network of radars, which is very expensive, Okay, so then baki sara management measures you can write, they are same as that of the management of floods. Okay, rest of the management measures are same as that of floods. So let's move ahead. So queries जो भी होगा please raise it in the query platform. थोड़ा सा slow हो रहा है, आज तो खत्म करना ही है. Okay, let's fasten it up. Drought. So what do you mean by drought? See, drought is a disaster caused by the shortfall in the rainfall. Okay, it is a disaster caused by the shortfall in the rainfall, but not necessarily by the shortfall. It is an impact of the shortfall. इसका मतलब है a shortfall of rainfall does not always guaranteely lead to the formation of drought. Okay, drought will not be always due to the shortfall of rainfall. दोनों. Whenever there is a shortfall of rainfall, still we can manage without drought if we can use the water efficiently. And even with the normal rainfall also we can have drought due to inefficient usage of water. ठीक है? So basically drought is a condition where the demand for the water exceeds the supply. Where the demand for the water exceeds to a very great extent than the supply. Supply से बहुत ज़्यादा demand हो गया. So that is what is drought. So उसका मतलब है whenever there is a shortfall in the supply, it can result in drought. But if you are able to reduce the demand को कम कर दिया तो still we can manage without drought. Drought को prevent कर सकते हैं. Or maybe supply was normal and demand has increased too rapidly. In that case also there is a drought. So usually it is not just about the shortage of rainfall, it is shortage of water. It is shortage of water availability. That is what is drought. Okay, please write the definition. A serious shortfall in the availability of water a serious shortfall in the availability of water mainly but not exclusively due to the deficiency of rains. Mainly but not exclusively due to the deficiency of rains is called as drought. What are the causes of droughts? So basically drought is not something suddenly हो गया. Okay, we call drought as a creeping disaster. Okay, it creeps in. It gives enough indication. हमारे सामने है what are the conditions, what are the important indicators of droughts. It's clearly visible. It usually happens over a long period of time. ठीक है? It's basically due to the prolonged dry condition where there is a shortage of water, and that can be due to both natural as well as man-made cause. नेचुरल भी हो सकता है, एंथ्रोपोजेनिक भी हो सकता है. सो नेचुरली जो भी होगा दे रेफर टू द सप्लाई, मैनमेड जो भी होगा दे रेफर टू द डिमांड. यूजुअली मैनमेड की वजह से सप्लाई भी कम हो सकता है, वो अलग बात है, बट यूजुअली ओके व्हाट एवर द नेचुरल रीजंस दे आर ड्यू टू द शॉर्टेज ऑफ सप्लाई. सप्लाई कम कर देता है. व्हाट आर द नेचुरल कॉजेस ऑफ ड्रॉट? वेरिएशंस इन द मॉनसून. Particularly a monsoon climate. Monsoon climate is that region where the precipitation is concentrated in few of the months of year. जैसे इंडिया में होता है ना, from June to September, that is the monsoon region, monsoon season. So when the people and the entire economies depend on the monsoon rainfall for a very short period of time, okay, इस period के लिए सब wait करते हैं, including the agriculture, everything. If there is a slight delay, it causes huge crisis. Everything is dependent on monsoon, the sowing, the harvesting, everything. Okay, अगर 15 दिन लेट हो गया, 20 दिन लेट हो गया, 1 महीने लेट हो गया monsoon, it will cause huge impact. Because just before the monsoon we have summers which are very very hot in India, and high summers, high hot summers causes very high evaporation. पूरा dry हो चुका होता है. थोड़ा सा भी ऊपर नीचे हो गया, it causes very high impact. ओके, मॉनसून की वजह से वेरिएशन हो सकते हैं, और इवन द डिक्रीज इन द रेनफॉल भी हो सकता है. ओके, समटाइम्स देयर इज अ डिक्रीज इन द रेनफॉल. सो बिफोर द मॉनसून actually starts, usually IMD gives the prediction. Okay, you might have seen in the news. IMD says this year we are going to have a normal monsoon. This year we are going to have a above normal monsoon or below normal monsoon. So that is very very important to decide the occurrence of drought. So we have the definition of drought. That's why based on the amount of average rainfall available, which is usually dependent upon the monsoon. क्योंकि majority of the India's rainfall is from monsoon only, even though we have northeast monsoon along the Coromandel coast as well as the western disturbance causing precipitation in the northwest part. Okay, but majorly monsoon की वजह से ही होता है. So when do we say it is a normal rainfall? Normal rainfall कब होगा? When the percentage departure is within the 10% of long period average. LPA बोलते हैं, long period average. So what is LPA? Long period average refers to basically the precipitation averages for 50 years. ठीक है? So if it is within that average 10%, we call it as normal. Okay, suppose the average long period average is 100 centimeter per year. Okay, 100 centimeter per year. So if it is between 90 to 110, we call it as a normal monsoon or normal rainfall year. Okay, try to follow this. This is the new terminologies. Normal. If it is less than 10% of LPA, it is below normal. If it is more than 10% of LPA, it is above normal. ठीक है, मतलब ये जो 10% का रेंज में है, through which we can define below normal and above normal. If the deficiency is more than 10% and the impacted area is 20 to 40% of the country, we call the entire year as a deficient year. क्योंकि this is a very normal that the precipitation varies from one region to another. Okay, कुछ जगह में बहुत heavy flooding होते हैं, कुछ जगह में at the same time there would be drought situations. Okay, it is a very normal, it is the most important characteristic of monsoon. But kabhi kabhi the majority of the regions, okay, nearly 20 to 40% of the regions would experience a shortfall in the rainfall. Then we call it as a deficient year. Okay, if it affects more than 40% of the area, we call it as a large deficient year. This is what is the definition of drought. Okay, drought as such is defined by the availability of rainfall. Of course, I said drought is not necessarily due to the availability of rainfall, but definition जो हम define करते हैं to take the measures, to initiate the measures, that is based on the availability of rainfall. So is it only due to the precipitation? Monsoon के वजह से ही क्या? No. It can also be due to El Nino condition. Whenever there is El Nino in Pacific Ocean, it reduces the precipitation in the Western Pacific as well as Indian Ocean. Okay, Australia and India, they are the most commonly impacted. वहां पर बारिश रहेगा. Okay, along the eastern coast of Pacific, along Peru, Chile coast, there would be higher precipitation, but India and Australia would face drought. Right? Along with that, if there is a negative Indian Ocean dipole, you might have heard about Indian Ocean dipole. So Indian Ocean dipole refers basically to the variation in the temperature conditions of waters between the Western Indian Ocean and the Eastern Indian Ocean. If the temperature is higher here, we call it as the positive dipole. If the temperature is lower here, we call it as the negative Indian Ocean dipole. Whenever there is a positive Indian Ocean dipole, that is good for Indian monsoon, causes heavy precipitation. Negative Indian Ocean dipole, that is bad for Indian monsoon, causes lower precipitation or delay in the monsoon. ठीक है? So these are the natural causes. इसमें ज्यादा कुछ man-made नहीं हो सकता है. There is not much of human intervention. What are the anthropogenic causes? एंथ्रोपोजेनिक कॉजेस ही खतरनाक वाला है. एंथ्रोपोजेनिक कॉजेस इतना खतरनाक वाला है, इवन ड्यूरिंग द नॉर्मल रेनफॉल पीरियड ऑल्सो इट कैन कॉज द ड्रॉट. बताइए व्हाट आर द एंथ्रोपोजेनिक कॉजेस विच रिजल्ट्स इन ड्रॉट? व्हाट डू यू थिंक? Deforestation, mismanagement of water storage system, ठीक है, then wastage, then pollution, high population density. We cannot say excessive usage or intensive or excessive cropping, but we can say intensive cropping, water intensive cropping, low groundwater level, intensive irrigation, good. Then Construction of roads, no. Please try to bring direct correlation. Construction of road के वजह से कैसे हो सकता है? Increasing population, ठीक है. So mainly all the activities which results in the higher demand or even lower water availability also. Lower water availability कैसे हो सकता है? Deforestation. Deforestation results in excessive runoff. More water runs off during the rainfall. It will not percolate. Rainfall खत्म हो गया, पानी नहीं है, पानी पूरा खत्म. That is due to deforestation and soil erosion. Okay, deforestation and soil erosion. Then water intensive agriculture. Water intensive agriculture. Over exploitation of groundwater. Over exploitation of groundwater. Degradation of lakes and wetlands. Degradation of lakes and wetlands. High population density and population explosion. Drought is a disaster which is very, very different from other type of disasters. बाकी सारा डिजास्टर से ये अलग है. कैसे? In what are the ways? Its onset is very slow. Slow onset. Okay, it's slow onset. It gives enough warning before it actually sets in. Many of the disasters will happen suddenly. Cloudburst suddenly हो गया, landslide suddenly हो गया. But drought is not something which happens suddenly. Okay, its onset is very slow. But once it starts, it will be there for longer duration. Okay, once it sets in, it will take a longer period of time to recover from drought. Then, compared to many other disasters, it affects a very large area. It affects a very large area, and particularly in that, it affects more of rural population. Why? Because it's not only for the household work we need, where they are dependent on water, even for their occupation, that is agriculture, which will be hugely impacted due to drought. Urban regions में तो इतना नहीं है ना? तो एक दिन नहीं नहाए तो भी चलता है. पानी का कमी है तो पीने के लिए पानी है तो काफी है, तो काम तो चल जाएगा, ऑफिस का काम तो चल जाएगा, है ना, डिओड्रेंट मार के हो जाएगा. बट इन रूरल एरियाज इफ देयर इज ए शॉर्टेज ऑफ वाटर, their entire economic activity stops, right? It affects larger area and it affects more of rural population. And most importantly, a drought can be prevented if we take enough measures on time, unlike all other disasters. Okay, अगर हमने टाइमली मेजर ले लिया, we can prevent the drought. Onset means beginning. Okay, shuru hona, that is what is onset, the beginning of drought. So what are the drought prone regions of India? कहां कहां पर ज्यादा चांसेस है ड्रॉट का? So most commonly affected regions of India. Okay, I hope you are writing. So these are the drought prone regions of India. See, usually whenever a drought sets in, it will take few months for the normalcy to return, because there are different stages and different types of droughts. We call it as meteorological drought, agricultural drought, hydrological drought. Meteorological drought is just the shortfall of rainfall. Precipitation kam ho gaya. Okay, agricultural drought is basically there is not enough moisture to support the crops. Hydrological drought is a very dangerous one, very serious one, where both surface and subsurface water level has decreased to a great extent. ठीक है, ऐसा वाला ड्रॉट सेट हो गया तो इट विल टेक ए लॉन्ग टाइम फॉर द नॉर्मलसी टू रिटर्न बैक. सो व्हाट आर द रीजन्स व्हिच आर मोर प्रोन टू ड्रॉट इन इंडिया? Okay, this map shows those regions, and most of them you can see the western part of the Rajasthan, Gujarat and some parts of Madhya Pradesh, and then the entire rain shadow region, extremely severe drought जो darkly mark किया है, you can see Rajasthan and northern parts of Gujarat, severe this parts of Madhya Pradesh and Telangana, northern Karnataka, Vidarbha region, and moderate rest of it. Okay, please note down the important areas. हो सकता है तो मैप लिख लो. Measures to deal with drought. What are the important measures? One very important measure हमने already discuss कर लिया है, rain water harvesting. Rainwater harvesting is like a single medicine for both drought as well as flood. Flood भी control कर सकते हैं, drought भी control कर सकते हैं. Okay, by collecting the rainwater and channelizing, we can improve the groundwater percolation, groundwater recharge, and reduce the surface runoff. है ना, रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग, दैट इज फर्स्ट वन. Suitable farming methods. Suitable farming methods, particularly for arid areas. बेस्ट एग्जाम्पल है हमारा विदर्भा रीजन ऑफ महाराष्ट्र. ओके, इट्स रेन शैडो रीजन, ड्राई रीजन, राइट. बट हमारा लोग यहां पर दे आर ग्रोइंग शुगर केन, वन ऑफ द मोस्ट वाटर इंटेंसिव क्रॉप, है ना. सो दे थॉट दैट हाँ बोरवेल लगा देंगे तो आ जाएगा, पानी आ जाएगा, बट कुछ साल के बाद तो बंद भी हो जाएगा, right? Suitable farming methods for arid areas. See, arid areas wherever the water is available less, we need to do the agriculture accordingly as per the local conditions, right? अगर arid area है, which one is more suitable over there? Pulses, oil seeds, बाजरा, ज्वार, रागी, है ना, which is more nutritious. But rather than that, if we go for water intensive crops, so that will cause definitely drought condition. Okay, it is very important that we develop the methods, suitable methods for arid regions. Okay, so यहां पर लिखो it involves soil moisture conservation, construction of check dams, and growing crops as per the local conditions. Example, millets, pulses, oil seeds, etc. So that is very, very important. If we try to introduce intensive agriculture methods in dry regions, वहां पर होगा drought. At the same time, we can also make use of drip and sprinkler irrigation rather than going for canal irrigation or well irrigation. Okay, drip and sprinkler irrigation, yes, these are NDMA का guidelines है. It is very important that we understand the groundwater potential of a particular region. Okay, if we understand the groundwater potential, then we can suggest the economic activities and agricultural activities accordingly. So that is the next one. Identification and mapping of groundwater potential. Through aquifer mapping. Through aquifer mapping. What is aquifer? जो सरफेस के नीचे रहता है ना, the regions which will store water, okay, they are called as the aquifers. Not every kind of rocks can store water. Only certain type of rocks with a good amount of permeability as well as porosity, they can store water. Okay, we call them as aquifer. We need to map them. Okay, कहां पर कैसे aquifer से कैसे कितना capacity, ये सारा समझना बहुत जरूरी है for drought management. Then drought monitoring. Okay, as I told you, drought is a disaster which takes a long period of time. It gives enough indication, enough warning. If we can monitor and see the signs, अगर कोई भी ऐसे लगा drought आने वाला है, okay, बारिश कम होने वाला है, immediately we can start to take the measures, right? So this is an important measure. Drought monitoring, that is continuous monitoring of water level of all the regions. Continuous monitoring of water level of all the regions. Then drought planning. Okay, drought monitoring is different, drought planning is different. What is drought planning? So drought planning is basically those measures of preparation and how to respond in case of drought. Okay, so what are the things to be prepared in order to face the drought and how to respond? Particularly respond is very, very important. If we don't respond properly, it will lead to huge crisis and drought will turn into famine. Okay, whenever there is a shortage of rainfall, which activity is the most impacted? Agriculture. Agriculture is the most important impacted. Agriculture बंद हो जाएगा. Agriculture जब when it is impacted है ना, it has a twin result. One is the loss of job for the rural farmers. At the same time, gradually the food grains will also start to decrease. We should act in both the fronts. Whenever we see that the drought is about to set in, okay, we have to provide an alternative employment opportunities for those farmers so that they get an alternative employment. Okay, we can keep them engaged. At the same time, we should also stop the measures, stop those things which will lead to the shortage of food grains. जैसे कि hoarding हो गया. Okay, hoarding and even to supply excessive food grains into the market, जो हमारा FCI का भी गोडाउन्स है उससे रिलीज करना, to provide for easy availability of food grains so that it will not lead to crisis. Okay, whenever there is a drought, usually there is a shortfall of some of the food items at least. The government should ensure that this shortfall do not happen. Okay, of course we have various measures for that. Essential Commodities Act hai and various methods to control the availability of goods and food grains in the market. That is drought planning. Okay, you can write to improve the effectiveness of preparedness. What is drought planning? To improve the effectiveness of preparedness, and to plan for response. And to plan for response during drought. One important solution or suggestion in the context of drought is cloud seeding. Okay, cloud seeding. What is cloud seeding? So basically what causes the formation of clouds? It is hygroscopic nuclei. Usually the dust particles which are there in the atmosphere, na, it acts as a hygroscopic nuclei, it absorbs the moisture in the air and results in the formation of clouds. The water content during its condensation, it gets absorbed by this hygroscopic nuclei. So that is how usually clouds are formed. During the prolonged dry regions, जब prolonged dry regions से clouds ही नहीं form हो रहा है, in that case we can actually form artificial clouds. Artificial clouds does not mean that their clouds are artificially created. We just induce the cloud formation through cloud seeding. Okay, what we will do, we will go in flight or helicopter and we will spread silver iodide, and many other components are also used. Majorly silver iodide use होता है. When we spread silver iodide in the air, it acts as the hygroscopic nuclei which can suck the moisture and result in the formation of cloud. Okay, that is what we call it the cloud seeding. We are not forming the clouds, we are just encouraging the formation of clouds. But this is not going to be successful in every place. बहुत जगह में ट्राई किया है, कर्नाटका में ट्राई किया था, हरियाणा में रिसेंटली ट्राई किया था, ठीक है. Okay, in few of the places it was successful, few of them it is not. So cloud seeding or artificial clouding, है ना, that is one of the important measure to deal with drought. But in the long term, what is the important measure? The sustainable management of water resource. Okay, जैसे हमारा इजराइल ने किया है ना, Israel is the best example for sustainable management of water resource. They have one of the very least water availability in the world, but still they are sustainable. They don't cry out for water, right? Yeah, UAE is also an example for that. ठीक है, so that is all about drought. So Mansi has a doubt how risk and vulnerability assessment is done in urban flood management. See, risk assessment or vulnerability assessment is basically based on identifying those regions which are more prone to flood. ओके, मोर प्रोन, जहां पर लो लाइंग हो सकता है, जहां पर नेचुरल चैनल्स है, नेचुरल पाथवे है, सो वी कैन आइडेंटिफाई दैट, राइट. सो बेस्ड ऑन दैट वी कैन प्रिडिक्ट कहां पर ज्यादा रिस्क है, कहां पर कम रिस्क है. सो दैट इज व्हाट इज रिस्क असेसमेंट. बेस्ड ऑन द रिस्क असेसमेंट वी कैन ऑल्सो डू द वल्नरेबिलिटी असेसमेंट, बिकॉज नॉट एवरी रिस्क रीजन इज वल्नरेबल, है ना. सो इट ऑल्सो डिपेंड्स ऑन अदर कंडीशन. ये सारा असेसमेंट को हम बोलते हैं रिस्क असेसमेंट एंड वल्नरेबिलिटी असेसमेंट इन drought, sorry, in urban flooding. Okay, that is all about urban flooding and drought and cloud burst. So let's take a short break, and after the break we'll continue with landslide, an important one. Recently hua hai landslides, so let's talk about that. And after the landslide I'll also talk about the cyclones and the rest of the other disasters. Okay, let's have a short break and come back. So let's talk about the next one, landslide. So अभी recently भी बहुत सारा landslide हुआ है. So when there was a cloud burst in Dharamshala, there was a landslides in the entire valley, and recently near to Kinnaur there was a huge landslide, है ना. बहुत सारे लोग भी मरे थे उसमें. So such an unfortunate incident. What are landslides? क्या होता है? What do you mean by landslide? So you might have read about landslide in geography, right? क्या होता है लैंडस्लाइड? Anyone? Movement of land down the slope. Land, not the entire land. Mass movement under the gravity due to slope. Devendra Singh. Good. Then sudden movement of land over a slope. Detachment of land or soil from the high altitude due to loosening. Okay, then anything else? So we have one good definition, mass movement under gravity. Yes. ऐसे वाला टर्म्स यूज करना है आपको, है ना. ज्योग्राफी का टर्म्स यूज करना है, दैट इज इंपॉर्टेंट. सो लैंडस्लाइड इज ए टाइप ऑफ मास मूवमेंट. Okay, it's a type of mass movement. Mass movement is the movement of the debris in large scale, है ना. It's a one of the very important force in the exogenetics, है ना. Exogenetic movement में we have weathering, erosion, mass movement. We have various types of mass movements where the entire section of the mass of land moves, है ना. So one such type is landslide. But all the mass movements usually they have a common thing, that is what is gravity. They are moving under the influence of gravity. It is not the water. With or without the presence of water. Even a normal debris जो recently हुआ था उसमें भी देख सकते हैं, the rocks were falling, huge rocks were falling, right? So rock fall is also a type of mass movement. Rock fall, rock slide, landslide, mudslide, earth flow, mud flow, बहुत सारा टाइप है. Solifluction, soil creep. In that one of the type is landslide. Landslide क्या होता है? Usually where a section of the mountain okay, suppose this is the mountain side, a section of the mountain will lose its strength. Why this section of the mountain is attached to this? यहाँ पर there is a strong holding force. Sometimes this strength is lost, the structural strength is lost, and this entire section comes off. That is what is landslide. What now? See, in order to understand landslide, you should always keep in mind, if there is a landslide, it is because of some loosening, है ना. उसका वहां जो रॉक्स था ना वो बहुत लूज हो गया, उसका स्ट्रेंथ कम हो गया, उसके वजह से इट इज स्लाइडिंग डाउन अंडर द इन्फ्लुएंस ऑफ ग्रेविटी. दैट लूजनिंग ऑफ स्ट्रेंथ, द लूजनिंग ऑफ मटेरियल कैन बी ड्यू टू एनी रीजन. कोई भी रीजन से हो सकता है. इट कैन बी बोथ नेचुरल एज वेल एज मैन मेड, दोनों की वजह से भी हो सकता है. ओके, नेचुरली क्या होगा? मे बी देयर वॉज ए ह्यूज फ्लड विच इज कॉजिंग द वॉशिंग अवे ऑफ दिस एंटायर सेक्शन, है ना. ह्यूज फ्लड की वजह से हो सकता है. और एक कंटिन्यूअस वाटर सीपेज इनटू दिस लोअर रीजन विच इज लूजनिंग द एंटायर रॉक सिस्टम एंड कॉजिंग द एंटायर लैंडस्लाइड. ओके, दिस विल हैपन ओवर ए पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. जैसे देर आर मेनी नेचुरल फैक्टर्स. एंथ्रोपोजेनिक फैक्टर मेजरली बिकॉज ऑफ द मैन मेड एक्टिविटीज ऑन द माउंटेन स्लोप्स. वट एवर द एक्टिविटीज आर देयर, रोड कंस्ट्रक्शन हो गया, डैम कंस्ट्रक्शन हो गया. If it is done in a manner not considering the structure of the rock system, it will lose its strength. Most commonly landslide happen along those stretches of mountains where there is a road construction. Road construction कैसे होता है mountains में? If we have to construct a road, so usually how do we construct a road? Okay, if there is a mountain section like this, if the mountain section is like this, we will usually cut off a section. ऐसे हम ही कट करते हैं. We will cut a portion of the mountain and then we will construct the road here. यहाँ पर road construction होगा. Okay, here the road construction will be done. Okay, but you have to remember, since we have cut the mountain, यहाँ पर थोड़ा सा जो भी in this area जो भी rocks रहेगा ना, particularly this region, this entire region, okay, they are still intact but they have lost support here. हमने तो इसको तो निकाल दिया. ओके, इसको तो निकाल दिया, ऐसे इतना तो निकाल दिया, बट इतना सा पोर्शन ऐसे ही है. वी नीड टू सपोर्ट दैट. फॉर दैट वी नीड टू बिल्ड a retention wall along the sides also. This is the actual method of constructing roads in the hilly regions. In how many places do you think the contractor will build the retention wall? बहुत जगह में करते ही नहीं है. They will just cut the mountain फिर वहां पर रोड बना देते हैं। यहां ऊपर जो भी बचा हुआ पार्ट है कभी ना कभी गिरना ही है, unless there is a retention wall here which will retain, which will provide the strength. Usually mountains region जहां पर slope ज्यादा होता है ना, they have this mountain wall, retention wall constructed. So ठीक से नहीं किया होगा, the way अभी चल रहा है ना चारधाम यात्रा का जो हाईवे एक्सपेंशन इन उत्तराखंड, नेशनल ग्रीन ट्रिब्यूनल हैड ऑब्जेक्टेड क्लियरली, यहां पर बहुत खतरनाक है, इतना बड़ा रोड बनाना नहीं बना सकता है, और इफ यू हैव टू डू इट यू हैव टू टेक एनफ मेजर्स जो इंडिया में यूजुअली नहीं करता है ना. सो एनजीटी हैज इंस्पेक्टेड द एंटायर प्रोजेक्ट एंड इट हैड इवन ऑर्डर्ड टू बी स्टॉप्ड, okay, saying not enough precautions are taken, it will lead to huge landslides. But अभी तो चल ही रहा है, construction is going on, let's see. Okay, so this, whenever a portion of the mountain loses its strength, it falls off, resulting in landslide, है ना, simple है. So कहीं पे भी होगा, it can be both natural as well as man-made factors. What is landslide? You please write the definition. It is the movement of mass of rock is the movement of a mass of rock, debris, down the slope under the influence of gravity, it is a type of mass movement. It is a type of mass movement. Causes. What are the causes of mass movements? Natural, anthropogenic. What are the natural causes? The most natural cause usually कहां पर होता है? We need a steep topography. Steep topography. Wherever there are more steep topography, there are chances. Along with that, if the precipitation is very high, we call it as excessive heavy precipitation. The regions of excessive heavy precipitation, possibility hai. Along with that, the regions of earthquakes, earthquake के वजह से भी लैंडस्लाइड हो सकता है, because when the earth shakes it loosens up the entire surface. अगर स्लोपी है, थोड़ा सा ज्यादा शेक हो गया, it causes the entire landslide. Earthquake, volcanic eruption, floods and cloudbursts, Anthropogenic क्या है? Majorly deforestation. How deforestation is a cause? See, if there is a continuous patch of trees along the mountain slopes, it gives strength to the mountain slopes. Wherever it is bare land, वहां पर ज्यादा loosening हो जाता है. It causes landslide. Deforestation, overgrazing, construction of roads and buildings, mining, of course, mining, soil erosion, etc. So this is how usually landslide happens. Yeah, construction of dams also, we can add that also. And can you see this entire section has come off, पूरा ऐसे निकल के आ गया. Why? Because पूरा strength कम हो गया. Either because of deforestation, water seepage, है ना, जो भी हो सकता है. It can be because of various reasons. Overall क्या है? It has started to move under the influence of gravity by losing its strength, पूरा loosening of the soil. So what are the regions in India which are more prone to landslide? We have very highly prone to a landslide, high hazard regions. Okay. The steeper parts of Himalayas. First one. Interior है, थोड़ा सा अंदर जाना पड़ेगा. Okay. That too on the south facing sides of Himalaya. Why not the north facing? वहां पर ज्यादा बारिश नहीं होता है. The monsoon hits the south facing sides of Himalayas. Right? The steeper sides of Himalayas in Jammu Kashmir, Himachal, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland and parts of Western Ghats also. Western Ghats में भी बहुत जगह में, even in the last 1 year there have been landslides. Okay, Kerala में Idukki के पास में हुआ था. Maharashtra में there have been few places where there have been landslides, है ना. These are very high hazard. High hazard. Rest entire Himalayas. Entire Himalayas are northeast. High hazard. मतलब very high इसके पहले जो बोला था, उसके अलावा जो भी entire Himalayas are northeast, of course except Assam. Okay, Assam is a plain, वहां पर landslide नहीं होता है, except Assam. That is high hazard. Then moderate hazard. Moderate hazard, you can write Sivaliks, Aravallis, Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats. Okay, Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats, as well as other parts where there are hills. Okay, moderate है. So what are the mitigation measures? Landslide mitigation measures, important है. So please give attention. Okay, keep writing. First one, landslide hazard zonation. Landslide hazard zonation. So what do you mean by landslide hazard zonation? So basically to assess the vulnerability of a region for landslide. Okay, to assess the vulnerability of a region, particularly mountainous region, and to identify those regions jahan par where there is a higher probability of landslide. So how can we identify them? We can identify them by doing the structural analysis, geological analysis, how strong the rocks are there, how well the layer is covered with the vegetation, how the water flow is there, the drainage pattern is there, is it seeping too much into the lower layers, है ना. By analyzing all these things we can come to a conclusion whether this region is landslide prone or not. So like that we can cover the entire region and do the landslide analysis and classify as per the hazard zonation. जहां पर ज्यादा पॉसिबिलिटी है, जहां पर कम पॉसिबिलिटी है, that is landslide hazard zonation. Okay, please write. It involves the preparation and validation of landslide zoning maps, preparation and validation of landslide zoning maps at requisite scale, with high resolution, at requisite scale with high resolution. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. First point, preparation on validation of landslide zoning maps at requisite scale with high resolution. Second point, landslide monitoring and early warning system. Landslide monitoring and early warning system. Landslide monitoring and early warning system. So can we monitor the landslide? Yes, we can monitor the landslide, है ना? Because we can identify those regions जहां पर ज्यादा हजार्डस है, ज्यादा पोटेंशियल है, ये तो पहले आइडेंटिफाई करके रख सकते हैं. एंड डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द वाटर अवेलेबिलिटी, प्रेसिपिटेशन ज्यादा कहां पर हो रहा है, फ्लडिंग होने का चांसेस कहां पर है ना? एंड इफ देयर इज एनी काइंड ऑफ अदर इंडिकेटर्स लाइक द वेजिटेशन कवर, ये सारा हम प्रेडिक्ट करके वी कैन ट्राई टू मॉनिटर, है ना? वी कैन मॉनिटर द लैंडस्लाइड इन ए रियल टाइम, पॉसिबल है, ठीक है? एंड वी कैन ऑल्सो डेवलप एन अर्ली वार्निंग सिस्टम, ठीक है? वेर एवर वी आर सीइंग दैट हाँ ओके यहां पर अभी ज्यादा चांसेस है, बारिश सडनली ज्यादा हो गया, सो देर इज ए हाई चांस हियर, सो वी कैन वेकेट देम इमीडिएटली, ओके, बाय गिविंग अर्ली वार्निंग. दैट इज लैंडस्लाइड मॉनिटरिंग एंड अर्ली वार्निंग सिस्टम. प्लीज राइट, इट इन्वॉल्व्स real-time monitoring, system for landslide prediction, and development of early warning system, सी ये जो भी मैं डिस्कस कर रहा हूं ना, ये सारा एनडीएमए का गाइडलाइंस है, ओके? प्लीज ट्राई टू रिमेंबर द हेडिंग्स एंड देन राइट इट. उसके अंदर एग्जांपल आप लिख सकते हो, ओके? अंदर एग्जांपल लिख सकते हो, बट ये हेडिंग्स याद करने का कोशिश रखो. नेक्स्ट, कल्चर ऑफ अवेयरनेस जनरेशन, and preparedness. Culture of awareness generation and preparedness. तो इसमें ज्यादा आपको पता है इसमें क्या करना है. सो बेसिकली टू सेंसिटाइज द पीपल, टू मेक देम, टू टेल देम दैट यू आर लिविंग इन ए हजार्डस जोन. तो यहां पर चांसेस है, अगर लैंडस्लाइड हुआ तो क्या क्या करना है, कैसे रिएक्ट करने हैं, कैसे इससे बचना है, एस्केप कैसे करना है. So that is what is awareness generation, and to be prepared, right? That is what is culture of awareness generation and preparedness. Next, capacity development and training. Capacity development and training. So वही है capacity development and training, basically to train the local people in handling the landslide, the vulnerable communities, है ना. And capacity development में basically there are various measures which can be implemented to prevent landslide. जैसे construction कर रहा है, okay, so it includes not only the government, even the private constructions also. So they should be sensitized in what way they have to develop their buildings, जो construction जो भी चल रहा है उसको कैसे बनाना है, okay, by having a strong pillars or by having a retention walls. You can see the mountain region requires a separate different type of construction methods. उसको sensitize करना है, okay, so that involvement of better technologies in constructions is capacity development, as well as the various resources required for that. It involves bringing together technology. It involves bringing together technology and management inputs. Bringing together technology and management inputs for capacity building. For capacity building and training of vulnerable communities. And training of vulnerable communities. Then preparation of mountain zone regulations. You might have heard about coastal zone regulation, CRZ. In the same way, NDMA suggests for preparing mountain zone regulation. We can divide the mountain regions into separate zones and control the activities. Which are the activities can be done here in this zone? Which are the activities should not be done in this zone? Okay, that is what is mountain zone regulations. ऐसे कुछ नहीं है. NDMA is suggesting that we should have such kind of mountain zone regulation and land use policies. Mountain zone regulation and land use policies. Then stabilization and mitigation of landslide. Stabilization and mitigation of landslide. So यहाँ पर it involves various measures. How to stabilize the entire land. Okay, either by using the retention walls or by increasing the green cover. All the technology comes here. The stabilization of the entire land cover, like this. Okay, so we can plan the development, the construction in the mountain region by understanding the rock structure and by building enough retention walls and providing more strength in that kind of constructions. This is in the context of construction. In the context of other regions, by increasing the vegetation cover, by reducing the soil erosion, by reducing the shifting cultivation, वो भी important है in many of the regions of northeast है ना. Shifting cultivation is a huge cause of soil erosion. उसके वजह से soil loses its strength and results in landslide. That is stabilization and mitigation of landslide. यहाँ पर आप example लिखो. Okay, construction of retention wall, correction of natural drainage, increasing the vegetation cover, ये सारा, reducing the soil erosion. So we have two more disasters before we go to the disasters in the current context. One is cyclone, another one is tsunami. Okay, of course we are talking about the tropical cyclones, not temperate cyclones. Okay, temperate cyclone is not a disaster as such. Tropical cyclone, which is a disaster, as well as tsunami. So this one I would suggest you go through the material. Okay, उसके material में अंदर दिया है. So just go through it, because let's try to give more time to the disasters in the current context. But try to understand what are the things which you have to remember in this. Cyclone में क्या पढ़ना है आपको, सुनामी में क्या पढ़ना है, I'll tell you. Cyclone definition तो आपको पता है. What are cyclones? You know about, you might have studied in detail about the cyclones in geography. Okay, understand the regions impacted by cyclones in India. Okay, try to write a map over there and mark those regions. Most probably the regions in the eastern coast, they are more prone to than the regions in the western coast, है ना? Because यहाँ पर ज़्यादा cyclone होता है. I hope all of you know about the reasons also. ये सारा चीजें regions affected. Then cyclone warning system. In this context, it is very important that you should know India has developed one of the best cyclone warning systems in the entire world. Because we know after 1999 super cyclone of Odisha, which caused huge destruction, we have improved a lot. Okay, we have improved a lot. We have one of the best method to track the cyclones. We use INSAT series of satellites. ISRO का जो INSAT series है ना, they are specifically used for cyclone tracking. We can exactly predict कहाँ से origin हो रहा है, कहाँ से आ रहा है, in which direction it is going. ये सारा चीजें we can give up to date, which is very much, whose results are very much visible in the way we are managing the cyclones. Okay, we have developed a lot of mastery over cyclone management in India. There is no doubt about that. Okay, so in that cyclone warning system, you can write about this. Basically, that we have developed a lot in the last few years, है ना? Particularly using the satellite tracking method, we are able to exactly predict where exactly cyclone is going to make a landfall and which are the regions which are going to be impacted. And even the warning system is also very well developed. Okay, warning system, cyclone warning जो system है ना, जो coastal regions में, we use all the different methods to warn the people over there. And उसके लिए भी they are also prepared. Community driven preparation methods are also totally implemented. Okay, construction of shelter homes, उनके लिए ट्रेनिंग भी दिया है ना? अगर साइक्लोन आ गया तो कैसे रेस्पॉन्ड करना है, कैसे रिएक्ट करनी, ये सारा चीजें पूरा उनको ट्रेनिंग दिया है. दैट्स व्हाई दे आर ऑल वेल प्रिपेयर्ड, क्योंकि हर साल तो साइक्लोन होता ही रहता है. सो दैट इज वेरी मच रिक्वायर्ड. दैट इज वन, like we can say, success which we have achieved in management of cyclone, because of course we cannot prevent the cyclones, right? So we have to be prepared to face the cyclones. That is we have done. And when it comes to the warning, I have told you we have developed all the different methods of warning. Okay, warning to TVs, radios, SMS, है ना? जो radio telecast, मतलब जो भी method है, we have developed all the different methods to distribute the warning, so that people are all alert and are ready to face the cyclone. Okay, that is about the warning system. And mitigation measures is basically about the same things जो earlier हमने जैसे discuss किया है, जैसे कि hazard mapping हो गया, land use control हो गया, and coastal plantations, flood management, ये सारा चीजें हैं. You can just go through that in the material. Okay, it's not that difficult. And even for managing mitigation of cyclone, we have a national program. Okay, that is National Cyclone Risk Mitigation Program, which is a centrally sponsored scheme implemented by NDMA. Okay, NDMA का implemented है, and they are being implemented all across the entire coastal states. पूरा coastal states में implement हो रहा है. Fine, that is about the cyclones. Tsunami, I hope tsunami is also covered in your geography. The way tsunami is generated, ये सारा चीज है. ठीक है. So in that also you have to understand about the tsunami warning. Before 2004 we had no system of tsunami warning. After that we have developed again a sophisticated system of tsunami warning. The entire Indian Ocean, wherever there is an earthquake, within a very short period of time we can send alert to the entire coastal region. Pura coastal region mein we have developed that tsunami warning system. And this one we are not only using, we are also sharing with the entire coastal countries. जो भी इंडियन ओशन का सराउंडिंग कोस्टल कंट्रीज है, सारा कंट्रीज के लिए वी आर गोइंग टू शेयर दैट इंफॉर्मेशन. जो भी अर्थक्वेक होगा along the ocean, so we can immediately alert everyone. Okay, that warning system is also very well developed. ठीक है. And tsunami management is also one topic. There are 6 stages in that, like tsunami risk management, tsunami preparedness, structural mitigation, regulation and enforcement, and emergency response and ensuring the implementation. Just go through this, understand the different headings जैसे हमने previous disasters में किया है. Just go through that. Okay, so tsunami के ऊपर एक बार क्वेश्चन आए हैं, but recently there has been no incidents of tsunami, so let's not worry about that. But I am not suggesting you to skip. Please go through that. Okay, please go through that. I'm not covering in detail because let's cover some of the other important currently related disasters. Okay, इसमें सबसे important है of course हमारा biological disaster. Okay, biological disaster is basically a man-made disaster, right? So इसके लिए भी we have specific NDMA guidelines to deal with biological disasters. Let's talk about that. So what is a biological disaster? Any disaster which is caused by any kind of biological vector, biological agents. It can be virus, it can be bacteria, it can be fungi or anything, okay, through any kind of biological carriers. We call it as biological disasters, epidemics. Okay, so we have seen, the history has seen a large number of such epidemics. ये जो हम देख रहे हैं, the COVID, it's something new which we have not seen, okay, with which our generation, our previous generation, before that they have not seen this. उसके पहले बहुत सारा हुआ है, okay, so but we did not expect that this will happen even in the modern time. That is because biological disasters are difficult to predict, okay, and difficult to prevent also. It is something which we have to accept. That is the most underlining, most important point related to biological disasters. We should understand that we cannot prevent, particularly in a situation like 21st century where we are talking about the globalization, more connected connection of the entire different countries, where we can move from one region to another region in a very fast manner. मतलब बहुत पहले तो we used to depend on the ships, अभी तो flights, easy transportation, easy movement of people as well as goods. That has also increased the chances of epidemics, right? So the first thing, it is impossible, that too in a connected world. हमने कितना बहुत किया था when we were saying that China में हो रहा है, ऐसे हो रहा है, so everyone were saying चलो लॉकडाउन करते हैं, पूरा करते हैं. Still, in spite of lockdown, we could not prevent, है ना, we could not prevent the spreading of the virus, right? It is not possible. Technically, it is not possible. Rather than concentrating about that, it's better to concentrate on how to deal with that. Okay, it is very important that how to deal with that. उसके लिए prepared रहना है. That is going to be more effective. Fine. So please write this. Biological disasters are very difficult to predict. Very difficult to predict as well as prevent. Very difficult to predict as well as prevent. They can be mitigated by anticipating them and by being prepared. full stop. The preparedness and response require a multi-sectoral and multi-agency approach. Multi-sectoral and multi-agency approach with health sector playing a lead role. Right? So to deal with any kind of epidemics, है ना, it is not something only related to hospitals. It is not something only related to doctors. जहां तक the community is not participating, जहां तक where everyone are coming together to stop this epidemic, it is very difficult to stop it. ऐसा नहीं है कि हाँ डॉक्टर्स को हमेशा ब्लेम करें, नो. कहां से स्प्रेड हो रहा है, the community, they have to participate very actively and all the sectors should cooperate together to prevent the spreading, है ना, तो हो ही जाएगा. So lockdown is not just a measure, है ना, lockdown is not just a complete it's like a single measure, हाँ इससे सारा खत्म हो जाएगा, नहीं. It requires a multi-sectoral approach. So what are the guidelines given by NDMA in this context to deal with biological disasters? Okay, the guidelines given by NDMA to deal with biological disasters. First one, legislative framework. Legislative framework. NDMA basically says that there should be a proper legislative framework to deal with biological disaster. We should have a specific policy, specific plan supported by legislation, statutory provisions होना चाहिए. Okay, इसको ऐसे ही control करने, ऐसे ही implement करने. That was the major reason, right? Why we panicked. है ना? Why we had to impose a nation down lockdown? क्योंकि कोई नहीं सुनता है. There was no strict provision. There were so many attacks even on the doctors also, right? हमारे पास ये provision भी नहीं था जो भी डॉक्टर के ऊपर अटैक करे उसको पनिश कर सकता है. We had to bring an ordinance over there. So there was not much of legislative framework. Right? It is very important to have a detailed legislative framework to deal with the epidemics. कैसे deal करना है? So please write. A legal, institutional and operational framework. Legal, institutional and operational framework which clearly defines the policy programs, plans and SOPs. Next, capacity development. पहले तो framework होना चाहिए. Okay, that is the basic thing. So once we have the framework, we should work towards capacity development in prevention of biological disaster. Prevention मतलब prevention of spreading. ठीक है, हो भी जाएगा, initiate हो जाएगा, but we should prevent the large scale spreading, right? That is the overall idea here. Capacity development for the prevention of biological disasters. So here it involves various actions like vulnerability and risk assessment. Vulnerability and risk assessment. कहां पर ज्यादा spread हो सकता है, कहां पर कम spread हो सकता है, right? And development of facilities. Vulnerability risk assessment हो गया. Development of facilities. that is infrastructures, है ना, required to deal with that, and then training of personnel to handle the epidemics, particularly ये जो हमारा health care workers है, they should be specifically trained. Okay, you can imagine why there was a huge difference between the first lockdown, first wave में and second wave में. During the second wave, of course, lot many people died. That is very unfortunate, but that is not because of the healthcare workers. It's because of the lack of oxygen supply. Even though the government is saying that nobody died, it's such a ridiculous thing. But in the first wave, the major thing was that the healthcare professionals, the workers, doctors, they even did not know how exactly to deal with this situation. They were not ready for this. Second wave, at least they were all, most of them are doubly vaccinated. And you might have seen that in the second wave, many of the doctors, first wave के comparison में were not infected. First wave में many of the doctors themselves had died in this entire process, right? But here they had the experience, they know how to deal with this, they had the protocol. Only thing is that facilities नहीं था. Okay, it's such an unfortunate thing that it happened. The infrastructure was not ready, but the people were ready. That is capacity development. Then so capacity development mein you can include another point, human resource training and education. Human resource training and education. Okay, here it is not the health work professional, here it is the community. Even they should be trained. They should be prescribed certain roles to play during the spread of epidemics. The non-health professional, है ना, उनका क्या role होगा? How a community should respond together. Okay, by conducting mock exercises or community awareness building programs. Okay, by organizing demonstrations, exhibitions, ये सारा चीजें. Okay, here we are emphasizing the role of community participation. Then developing critical infrastructure, very important, developing critical infrastructure. So जो मेजर गलती हुआ है इन इंडिया, ओके, हमने तो लॉकडाउन कर दिया और गवर्नमेंट ने सोच लिया कि लॉकडाउन कर लिया तो सारा हो जाएगा, but it should have concentrated on developing the infrastructure required to deal with the epidemic, right? Whether in terms of the laboratory network or in terms of the testing facility, okay, or in terms of the hospital beds or the oxygen supply, the medicine supply. Okay, that is the critical infrastructure, right? That is most important one. Then preparedness. Preparedness involves establishing a clear command, clear coordination at different levels. Okay, if you can see last year और इस साल में क्या difference था? Last year lockdown happened at the national level. Okay, and that resulted in many other impacts. बहुत जगह में failure हुआ था. Why? Because it was a top-down approach. This time they said states will take the decision, and state said okay, districts will take the decision. Depending upon the particular district's condition, the DC, DM took the call whether the lockdown should be done, curfew should be enforced, what time, relaxation कब देना है, and this has been successful this time. In many of the places we were able to contain the spread, mainly because we did not follow a uniform approach. At the same time, there was a better coordination, है ना? Clearly the command was established, clearly the control was established, that was able to give the better results, right? Preparedness में क्या होगा? Establishment of command, control and coordination functions at the district level, with DM or DC as the commander. Then pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical intervention. Pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical interventions. So pharmaceutical interventions क्या होता है? So basically वही है, to check how many people are infected, how fast it is spreading, how many testing is happening, in that how many is found positive. Okay, even the vaccination, how much of population is vaccinated, the vaccination methods, and developing the database, how many people are doubly vaccinated, how many people are singly vaccinated, and इसमें कितने, how much of population is vulnerable, more prone, how many are children, ये सारा जो काम होता है ना, this is what is pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical interventions. Fine, you can write the examples. पहले major measures समझ लो, उसके अंदर example आप खुद लिख सकते हो, because you cannot remember each and every point, that is not possible, I am saying. ठीक है. Then mechanism for public health response. Mechanism for public health response. So public health response basically whenever there is an outbreak, मतलब suddenly spread होना start हो गया. So what are the immediate measures to be taken? Surveillance कैसे करना है, investigation कैसे करना है, कहाँ से शुरू हुआ है. So these are the things which are done in the beginning of the outbreak. जैसे वुहान में स्टार्ट हुआ था ना, तभी ठीक से इंटरोगेट करके, इंटरवेंशन करके, है ना, स्टैंडर्ड केस डिफाइन करके, ये पहला केस था, यहां से स्प्रेड हुआ है, पूरा ट्रैक करके रख दिया तो इतना ज्यादा स्प्रेड नहीं होता शायद. ओके, दैट इज द इमीडिएट रेस्पॉन्स इन केस ऑफ पब्लिक आउटब्रेक, विच इंक्लूड्स the outbreak investigation, surveillance, follow-up, collection of samples, etc. And preparation, next one, preparation for biological contamination. Sorry, containment. Biological containment. प्रिपरेशन फॉर बायोलॉजिकल कंटेनमेंट, मतलब जो भी विच एवर द रीजन्स विच आर इन्फेक्टेड है ना, उसको कैसे कंटेन करना है, हाउ टू स्टॉप देम इन दैट पर्टिकुलर रीजन्स ओनली. दैट इज व्हाट इज बायोलॉजिकल कंटेनमेंट. टू कंटेन, ये जो हमने लॉकडाउन, सील डाउन, ये सारा किया था ना, दैट इज व्हाट इज बायोलॉजिकल कंटेनमेंट. टू प्रिवेंट द स्प्रेड ऑफ इंफेक्शियस माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिजम्स, ओके, इन ए लार्ज स्केल. हेडिंग्स याद रखो, इसके अंदर एग्जाम्पल एलॉबरेशन आप खुद लिख सकते हो. ओके, दीज आर द एनडीएमए गाइडलाइंस, प्लीज रिमेंबर. इसके ऊपर क्वेश्चन आया तो यू हैव टू राइट दिस, इसके एग्जाम्पल अलग है. सो इंडिया में क्या हुआ था, व्हाट आर द नोडल एजेंसीज, हाउ डिड वी डील विद दैट, इसके ऊपर प्रीलिम्स का क्वेश्चन आ सकता है. दैट्स व्हाई आई एम टेलिंग यू व्हिच इज द मेन डिसीजन मेकिंग बॉडी इन द कंटेक्स्ट ऑफ दिस एंटायर पैंडेमिक. व्हिच इज द मेन डिसीजन मेकिंग बॉडी? It is the Ministry of Health and Family Affairs. Ministry of Health and Family Affairs. So that is the nodal agency. Nodal agency, the chief decision making body in India. Okay, for any kind of epidemics. And why there is so much of complication? Why the central government could not impose a complete control? Because health is a state subject. Okay, health is a state subject, so that increases the complexity also. And the nodal agency for investigation of outbreak, nodal agency for investigation of outbreak, it is National Institute of Communicable Diseases. National Institute of Communicable Diseases in India is the nodal agency for investigation of outbreak. And how did we impose lockdown? Lockdown कैसे impose किया था? Using the National Disaster Management Act. जो हमारा एक्ट है ना इस एंटायर सेक्शन का, National Disaster Management Act. So using that provision only we have imposed the lockdown. Okay, as per the provisions of National Disaster Management Act, NDMA has the power to direct all the state governments to take measures for ensuring social distancing to prevent the spread of viral diseases. ये provision दिया है. Okay, किसके पास में है? The NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, has the power to direct all the state governments to take measures for ensuring social distancing to prevent the spread of viral diseases. Okay, based on these powers, NDMA has given direction to the state governments. Last year क्या किया था? बोला था कि हम directly बोल रहे हैं. Okay, we are giving directly suggesting, we are directly telling the states to lockdown. पूरा lockdown करना है. They had no other options. But this time they said states will take the call. Remember? Okay, so they said that the state will take the call and the state will decide. In both the cases NDMA का ही direction था, but last time NDMA directly said, this time it allowed the state to decide. Okay, and state gave the powers in many of the parts, the states gave the power to the district authority. And the entire subject of disaster management is basically a concurrent list. Okay, it's a concurrent subject, that's why both center and state can take the action. Okay, both of them can take the action together. So that is about the biological disasters. Okay, so there is some more things in the material, please read it once. But overall यही है, आपको ये याद रखना है. Okay, the measures suggested by NDMA, how to deal with that, इसका heading याद रखो and please try to write them in the answers. Examples and elaborations you can give by yourself. Now, two important disasters, one is forest fire, another one is heat wave. Forest fire and heat wave. Okay, let me talk briefly about this. So because we have seen in many of the recent times the episodes of forest fire. Okay, particularly Australia में हुआ था. Australia में there was a large forest fire, Amazon में forest fire हुआ था. What are the causes of forest fire? Again, here also we have both natural as well as anthropogenic. What are the natural causes of forest fire? So usually wherever the regions which are bit dry, जहां पर dryness ज्यादा रहता है, aridity ज्यादा रहता है, with very less precipitation or very prolonged precipitation, dry weather condition, it can cause forest fire. But the triggering factor तो चाहिए ना, ये तो basic factor है. There is a need of dryness and aridity, but the triggering factor is some natural event. Naturally क्या क्या event हो सकता है? Lightning, rolling of stones, Okay, when the roll glides or rolls along the surface, it can cause the spark and it can result in forest fire. Or swaying of bamboo. Okay, bamboo in dry regions becomes very dry, बहुत ज़्यादा dry रहता है. And when huge bamboo trees are swaying in the wind, between them it can cause the friction. ठीक है. एंथ्रोपोजेनिक क्या होगा? सी दिस इज द बेसिक कंडीशन, दोनों के लिए होना चाहिए. इट शुड बी ड्राई अरिड रीजन. इट कैन नॉट कॉज फॉरेस्ट फायर ड्यूरिंग द मॉनसून. प्रेसिपिटेशन में नहीं हो सकता. यू नीड ए वेरी प्रोलॉन्ग ड्राई कंडीशन दैट इंक्रीजेस द पोटेंशियल फॉर द फॉरेस्ट टू कैच फायर. ओके, एंथ्रोपोजेनिक में क्या होगा? शिफ्टिंग कल्टिवेशन, द फायर स्प्रेड्स फ्रॉम वन रीजन टू अनदर, और इवन in many of the regions they lit the forest for regeneration growth के लिए. in certain patches they start the forest fire by themselves, वो बड़ा spread हो जाएगा. or it can be even by poachers, because during the forest fire it is very easy to catch the animals. Okay, it can be done by the poachers also, or it can be by accidentally by the tribes who are living, or by the tourists who are out of negligence or out of foolishness. है ना, कोई भी हो सकता है. What are the types of forest fire? There are major types. One is surface fire. सरफेस फायर का मतलब क्या है? द फायर स्प्रेड्स अलोंग द सरफेस. जो नीचे का जो ग्रास होगा या फॉलन लीव्स होगा ना, उसको जला के इट स्प्रेड्स आउट. ऊपर ऐसा ही रहता है बट इट स्प्रेड्स आउट, इट स्प्रेड्स फास्ट. दैट इज व्हाट इज सरफेस फायर. और वी कैन ऑल्सो से क्राउन फायर. व्हाट इज ए क्राउन फायर? नीचे से क्लियर रहता है, ऊपर से अलोंग द क्राउन ऑफ द ट्रीज, है ना, अलोंग द कैनपीज द फायर स्प्रेड्स. दैट इज व्हाट इज क्राउन फायर. इट स्प्रेड्स थ्रू the crown. Or we can say bush fire. What is a bush fire? Bush fire is the very famous forest fire of Australia. What is a bush fire? Bush fire is basically a forest fire in a bushland. Bushland क्या होता है? Scrub land, dry grassland. That is what is bushland. ऑस्ट्रेलिया का जो नॉर्थन पार्ट ऑफ ऑस्ट्रेलिया है ना, दे आर very famous for this bushlands. There is not much of vegetation over there. Small grasses, small plants, or the eucalyptus trees. They are very famous for eucalyptus trees. Such kind of scrublands or bushlands can catch the fire very easily. क्योंकि ऑस्ट्रेलिया का नॉर्थन पार्ट है ना, सेम एज इंडिया. इट एक्सपीरियंसेस मॉनसून. वहां पर भी मॉनसून होता है, बट इन ऑपोजिट सीजन. बट बिफोर द मॉनसून there is a prolonged dry season. बहुत ज्यादा ड्राई रहता है, so it can catch fire very easily, particularly because of the eucalyptus trees, which contains a very high oil content. Oil content बहुत ज्यादा रहता है, it can catch the fire very easily, and once it catches, it burns for a longer period of time. इसलिए बहुत खतरनाक होता है. Okay, bush fire. That is what is bush fire. What are the regions in India which are impacted by forest fire? सवन्ना टाइप नहीं है. सवन्ना में क्या होता है? बहुत टॉल ग्रास रहता है. Okay, savanna is famous for tall grass. It is not tall grass. It is short bushes as well as eucalyptus trees. What are the regions in India which are more prone to forest fire? Forest fire का ज्यादा से ज्यादा कहां पर है? The first region is northeast. Okay, very high vulnerability region. Very high vulnerability region. Why? Because of the practice of shifting cultivation. It is most common. India में it is said that nearly 50% of all the districts can experience forest fire in one or the other way. कहीं ना कहीं होता ही रहता है. 50% of all the districts. In the top 20 districts which are more prone to forest fire are in northeast only. ठीक है, it's because of the shifting cultivation. Second region is Himalayas, which are again very prone to very prone to forest fire. Himalayas, उत्तराखंड, हिमाचल प्रदेश particularly. जम्मू कश्मीर थोड़ा सा टेम्परेचर कम रहता है ना, सो देयर आर लेसर चांसेस ऑफ फॉरेस्ट फायर, बट वहां पर भी थोड़ा सा होता है. So why Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand are more prone? Two reasons. One is there is a prolonged dry season. Monsoon takes time to reach over there. Before that, March से लेके till July, there is a very prolonged dry season. If you visit Himalayas in this particular season, ना आप अप्रैल मई में चला गया तो ऐसे लगता है कि ये सच में हिमालय है क्या. बहुत ड्राई रहता है. Unless you go to the higher reaches, it's all totally dry. It is more prone. Second one, very important reason. In this particular lower stretch of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, na, the naturally grown tree is Devdar. Devdar was naturally grown, but it is not commercially very good. मतलब इसका commercially less value है. So people started to replace this Devdar with pine trees. Pine tree is commercially more valued. And they are also fast growing, easy to cut. So in many of the places where naturally Devdar was growing, they started to replace with pine tree. Okay, but the thing is यहाँ पर pine tree तो आता like it will grow easily, but it is not its natural habitat. Natural habitat pine tree का क्या है? Higher reaches where there are cold temperatures. वहां पर ठीक है, but if you bring that in the lower high temperatures, it can catch fire very easily because their leaves are needle-like leaves. It can catch fire very easily. That is one of the most important reason why Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand are more prone to forest fire. And other than that, we have Central India and Western India also. Central India also, because यहाँ पर बहुत ज़्यादा forest regions तो है ही, the tribal regions, the wildlife, poachers, ये सारा जो factors हमने discuss किया है. And most importantly, Western Ghats, just before the monsoon, very specifically we have two important national parks, Bandipur and Nagarhole National Park. Okay, Bandipur and Nagarhole National Park, which are very very famous or infamous for every year they have a forest fire over there. हर साल कुछ ना कुछ हो ही जाता है because the conditions become very very dry. Fine. That is about forest fire. There are certain mitigation measures. So mitigation measures are of two types. एक हो गया to prevent the forest fire. दूसरा हो गया अगर forest fire हो गया तो कैसे मैनेज करना है ना. Prevention में there are various measures to sensitize the people, to bring awareness, to involve the local tribal people, to stop the shifting cultivation. ये सारा चीज है. Even here also we can do the vulnerability assessment by analyzing those zones जहां पर बहुत ज्यादा ड्राई हो गया है. That is one thing. Second thing, fire start हो गया, उसको कैसे stop करना है. There are various measures. One such measure is controlled burning. Controlled burning. What is controlled burning? मतलब to divide the entire forest region into different patches and to separate the patches by fire lines. Okay, to separate the patches by fire lines. What is a fire line? Okay, usually the fire spreads along the surface. जो surface fire होता है ना, it spreads along the surface है ना, उसके बीच में हम gap create कर देते हैं by constructing some road, mud road हो जाएगा या clear line हो जाएगा, line of demarcation हो जाएगा, so that the fire do not spread from one region to another region. That is what is we call it as the fire line. What is controlled burning? Controlled burning is selectively burning specific regions. ओके हमने डिवाइड कर दिया इस एक जोन को लेके यहां पर हम ही यहां पर जला दिया. ओके वी आवरसेल्फ लिटिंग द फायर and that is totally in a controlled manner so that it will not spread to the other regions, so that agar in case of natural fire also overall it will not lead to the huge damage. kaise agar beech beech mein aise patches humne create kar diya it will not spread very easily. It will reduce the overall potential of the entire region to catch fire, hai na, to create here and there the patches where controlled burning has been done, okay, through which we can prevent the spread of the forest fire. At the same time we can reduce the overall potential of the forest to catch fire itself. इसके अलावा बहुत सारा है जैसे कि फायर रेटिंग सिस्टम, डिफाइनिंग सर्टेन सिग्नल्स, क्लियरिंग द लिटर, ये सारा चीजें हैं. You can just go through that once in the material. But remember two types of mitigation measure. One is to prevent, another is to handle. Handling में ये जो forest fire line हो गया, controlled burning हो गया, है ना, and fire fighting drills हो गया. अगर fire हो गया तो कैसे करना है? Even we have the satellite system to monitor the forest fire. We can immediately get the warning. Such systems are also there. Just go through that once. Okay, it's given in detail in the material. Last thing, heat wave. Okay, there are two conditions. One is cold wave, another one is heat wave. Both are defined based on the departure of the temperature from the normal condition. So normally kitna temperature hota hai? Okay, usually cold wave happens during the winters and heat wave during the summers, right? Winter temperature में if the normal low temperature से बहुत ज़्यादा departure होके नीचे चला गया, we call it as cold wave. We have a specific condition. If the departure is from 4.5 degrees to 6.4 degree, we call it as the cold wave. If it goes beyond 6.4 degree, we call it as the severe cold wave. मतलब normal minimum temperature से इतना ज़्यादा, suppose on this particular day we have, this is the normal temperature. Winter मान लो December first week चल रहा है, 7th of December. Usually the normal minimum temperatures in this particular season is, let's say 15 degrees. Okay, 15 degrees. वो 15 डिग्री से डिपार्चर होके the minimum temperature has reached 10 degrees. In that case, we will call it as a cold wave. Okay, that departure is important. Okay, understand. So based on the departure, we call it as a cold wave. In the same way, if we have a huge departure in the high temperature during the summers, we call it as a heat wave. Normally, even during the summers, we have a specific threshold. Okay, June में this is the highest temperature, usually it would be there. मान लो Delhi में 40 degree is the highest temperature in June. In the place of 40, if we experience 45, we say it is a heat wave. Okay, we have specifically defined set. Okay, normal heat wave is when the departure goes between 4.5 to 6.4 degree. If it is severe heat wave, it is above 6.4 degrees. What causes these heat waves? Prolonged dry conditions. Without precipitation, the dry condition is prolonging. Hot winds from the surrounding region. North India में लू चलता है ना? The loo comes from the loo comes from Rajasthan desert and Pakistan. So such conditions, when we have a hot winds and a very prolonged dry conditions, the temperature rises rapidly and it goes above the average. Normal से जो सबसे ज्यादा ऊपर चला जाता है ना, that is when we declare heat wave. And this occurrence of heat wave have increased over the period of time due to the changing weather pattern, है ना, which most of us can easily attribute to global warming and climate change. Global warming and climate change, everyone says सबके लिए global warming and climate change को blame मत करो. Yes, blame नहीं करना है, but at the same time we should understand everything is interlinked. है ना, everything is interlinked. The increase in the number of heat waves, the increase in the number of cloud bursts or increase in the number of cyclones, these variations, why is it causing? That is because of the rapid changes which are happening in the climate. इंडिया में कहां पर heat wave ज्यादा होता है? I am talking about heat wave. Cold wave आप एक बार देख लेना, क्योंकि cold wave it was not in news in the recent times. Okay, it's there in the material. Heat waves का एक बार देख लो. Which are the regions are more prone to heat waves? Particularly in India, the entire northern plains. Rajasthan, Haryana, Punjab, UP, Bihar, है ना, and parts of Madhya Pradesh. जो नॉर्थर्न प्लेन्स बोलते हैं, दैट एंटायर रीजन इज मोर प्रोन टू हीट वेव्स. व्हाई? बिकॉज ऑफ द कॉन्टिनेंटैलिटी इफेक्ट. They are very away from the oceans. They get heated very faster during the summers, and the high temperature is maintained for a long duration. It takes a longer period of time for the monsoon to reach over there. है ना? So that is why particularly in the northern plains there are more chances of heat wave. What is the time period? Between April to June, before monsoon. जून में कभी कभी मानसून जल्दी आ जाता है तो हीट वेव का चांसेस कम है. जैसे इस साल हो गया, मानसून वाज बिट डिलेड, हीट वेव वाज मोर इन दिल्ली. देयर वाज अ वेरी हाई टेम्परेचर, एंड पर्टिकुलरली even in the northern plains the cities are more hotter than the rural region because of heat island effect, because of the concrete surfaces, which will help in the continuous exchange of heat. It will preserve the heat. Mitigation measures, again I am telling you, please go through the material. I want to discuss one thing, I'm sure, which is not there in the material. Mitigation measures इसमें भी मैंने दिया है, PPT में है. I'll share the PPT with you guys. So one important event, let me just take 2 minutes. जो इस बार हुआ था, heat dome in Canada. Okay, many of the students were asking about this, that's why I have taken this up. ऐसा इतना ज्यादा कॉम्प्लेक्स फिनोमिना नहीं है, वेरी सिंपल थिंग. सो दिस इज नॉर्थ अमेरिका, राइट? दिस इज नॉर्थ अमेरिका, दिस इज पैसिफिक ओशन. पैसिफिक ओशन, दिस इज इक्वेटोरियल रीजन. चलो और थोड़ा सा नीचे रहेगा, दिस इज इक्वेटोरियल रीजन. पैसिफिक ओशन में क्या होता है? ड्यूरिंग द एल नीनो द टेम्परेचर्स इन दिस पार्ट्स ड्रॉप्स, सॉरी, टेम्परेचर इन दिस पार्ट्स राइजेस एंड द ओवर देयर टेम्परेचर ड्रॉप्स. यहां पर कन्वेक्शन होगा, हियर इट स्टार्ट्स टू सबसाइड. दैट इज व्हाट इज एल नीनो, राइट? बट अभी चल रहे ला नीना. ला नीना में क्या होगा? इट इज द ऑपोजिट वर्जन ऑफ एल नीनो. देयर इज ए स्ट्रॉन्गर कन्वेक्शन इन द वेस्टर्न पैसिफिक ओशन and stronger subsidence in the eastern Pacific Ocean. This is how the La Nina works, right? Remember, during the La Nina, there is a very strong convection in the western Pacific Ocean. The strong convection causes huge buildup of clouds. यहाँ पर बारिश भी होगा, floods भी होगा. That is La Nina. But this rising air also moves towards the eastern part, and there it starts to subside towards the eastern part. So this is La Nina, right? Now let's bring jet stream here. Let's bring jet stream here. This is northern America, right? This is northern America. तो यहां पर actually subside हो रहा था, and the jet streams which have become too much of meandering. Usually jet stream कैसे होते हैं? यहां पर ऐसे होता है. Sometimes when the jet streams have become too much of meandering, why the jet stream have become too much of meandering? Because of the decrease in the temperature contrast between the different cells. When the temperature contrast between the different cells, the polar cell and the feral cell, they are more maximum. At that point of time, they are very strong. Since the temperature contrast has become reduced, jet streams has become very weakened, and this weakened jet stream start to meander too much. Okay, they start to meander too much. उससे क्या होगा? In some of the regions, it brings hot air more into the interior. In some of the regions, it brings cold air more into the southern part. Okay, when the jet streams are meandering, कुछ जगह में it is bringing more hot air from the equatorial regions. In some of the regions, it is bringing more cold air towards the southern parts. कनाडा में क्या हुआ? यहां पर it is bringing actually hot air. At the same time, there was a higher subsidence of air. यहां पर है ना, ऊपर से air is subsiding because यहां पर there is a stronger convection and there is a stronger subsiding. This subsiding hot air, usually the air which subsides है ना, they are hot. This subsiding hot air was trapped here by the jet streams, which acted like a glass lid. है ना, ऊपर से glass lid लगा दिया तो कैसे होगा? The entire air is trapped, है ना. The first thing, this is a descending air which is already hot, and that has accentuated because of the La Nina. Now because of the too much meandering of jet stream, it has trapped this entire hot air in this particular region, जहां पर है हमारा कनाडा का prairies. The atmosphere has trapped the hot air like a lid or a cap. And once such condition is created, at least for 5 to 10 days, it will prolong before it gets cleared continuously. तब तक तो पूरा कितना डैमेज होगा हो चुका हुआ था. कनाडा अचीव्ड इट्स हिस्टोरिकली हाई टेम्परेचर. अभी तक इतना हाई टेम्परेचर हुआ ही नहीं था. हिस्टोरिकली हाई टेम्परेचर्स 47-48 degrees. That's because of the heat dome. Okay, it's because of heat dome. Clear? You should understand the connectivity between the La Nina and then jet stream. You will get it. Any doubts here? इसका impact क्या होगा ये सारा, it is all similar to the impacts of heat wave which is given in the material. Just go through it once. Okay, if you have any doubts you can write to me at this mail. Cold air subside होगा. Cold air subside नहीं होगा. It is the hot air which was subsiding. La Nina में क्या होगा? Along the entire eastern Pacific, air subsides. It creates a dry condition. Why dry condition? It is the hot air which is subsiding. Basically, this can be easily related to the global warming and climate change. Why there is a weakening of jet stream? इतना ज़्यादा weakening क्यों हो गया था? Temperature contrast कम हो गया था. Because of global warming, the Arctic is heating up too much. Arctic amplification is happening. है ना, वहां पर जो जितना cold temperature रहता है वो तो कम हो गया. Jet streams are weakened. Too much of meandering. It is trapping the hot air over there. Right? We can see a clear direct connection with the global warming. Hill state disasters है ना, there is no specific disaster as such. Hill state disaster, hill state में कौन कौन सा है common disaster? एक हो गया flood, दूसरा हो गया cloud burst, तीसरा हो गया landslide. तीनों हमने डिस्कस कर लिया है. उसको क्लब करके आपको लिखना है आंसर. Whatever the questions which have come on the hill states है ना, their unbalanced development, it is growing too much. ये सारा चीजें क्यों हो रहा है? Because of the mismanagement, and the result of which is either landslide, either cloud burst or flooding. Cloud burst, it is not causing it, but we are not able to face it. We are not able to face it because we are not prepared. We are thinking that we can develop as much as possible, जितना भी हो सकता है, we can do that. With that attitude, it is not possible, right? So hill state का separate ऐसे कुछ जरूरी नहीं है. You can write about the mitigation measures of both landslide, flood as well as the cloud burst. तीनों लिख सकते हैं. ठीक है? So that covers our disaster management. If you have any other questions, queries, you can write to me, and if you want to connect with me in Twitter, you can use this link. And I think that would be the last part of our interaction. So I wish you all the best for all of you. Please prepare thoroughly for prelims. It's high time that you concentrate completely on prelims. तो करो, prelims clear करो, फिर वापस आओ, मिलते हैं, है ना? I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.